My name is John Smith, and I'm a 35-year-old software engineer living in the suburbs of Waukon, Illinois. Looking back, I can pinpoint the start of my marital troubles to a few months ago, when my wife Emma went on a cruise to the Caribbean with her friend Sarah and another girl from work. At the time, I was juggling a lot between my job, some night classes I was taking to try to move up at work, and helping take care of our 3-year-old daughter Lucy. Emma's a nurse, and she had been making comments about feeling burnt out and unappreciated lately, like she never got a break from either her job or mom duties. When her friend Sarah suggested the cruise, Emma's eyes lit up at the chance for some relaxation and girl time. The break would be amazing, she told me over dinner one night. You know how stressed I've been. I need to recharge. I could see her point. The last couple years had been nonstop. We were running the classic parenting marathon. If you think it would help, babe, you should absolutely go, I said. We can hold down the fort here with Lucy. Just try to relax and have fun for once. The weeks leading up to the cruise, Emma was adorably excited, getting her nails and hair done, buying a new swimsuit, booking massages on the ship. She left instructions for me about Lucy's routines and schedules like I was a sub taking over one of her nurse shifts. We laughed about how type A she was being. The week she was gone, Lucy and I managed okay, even if the house was a mess and we ate frozen pizza most nights. I lived the classic bachelor life, putting off chores, letting her watch extra TV, that kind of thing. Honestly, it would be kind of nice having another adult helper around consistently. When Emma got back though, she seemed different, distant. We went out for dinner to celebrate her first night home, and she was quieter than usual, sipping her wine while I gave her the mile-a-minute rundown of how Lucy's week went. John, can I be fully honest with you? She said, setting her glass down soberly. I felt my stomach clench involuntarily, sensing something heavy was coming. Yeah, of course, what's up? I replied, trying to keep my tone light. Didn't love the cruise after all. Emma's face twitched slightly, then she sighed. I think we need to separate for a while. This trip made me realize how unhappy I am in our marriage, how unfulfilled I feel. The words hit me like a sucker punch to the gut. Sure, we've been having more arguments lately, getting on each other's nerves over parenting stresses, and me being gone a lot between work and class, but separating. Our marriage always felt basically solid to me otherwise. I loved Emma with everything in me. Well, what are you talking about? Sputtered, feeling tears start to well up. Where is this coming from? Did something happen on the cruise? Her eyes flitted around evasively. No, nothing like that. I need some space. Some time to rediscover myself. We're not connecting like we used to. And it's no one's fault, it just happens sometimes. Looking back, I probably should have pushed her harder in that moment about what was really going on. But I was so blindsided. I just desperately clung to the possibility of fixing things. Okay, I said, trying to collect myself. I hear what you're saying, and maybe we can go to counseling before making any rash decisions. Figure out how to rekindle that spark. She was quiet for a long moment. Okay, counseling first, but no promises, John. I can't keep living this way. As we headed home in silence, I felt like my world had been shaken to its core. Had our marriage been that bad without me realizing? What did she mean about discovering herself? Was she interested in someone else? So many questions spun in my mind, but most of all, I felt sick desperation to avoid losing the family, the life I loved more than anything in the world. Whatever it took, I told myself I had to save my marriage and bring back the Emma I knew. Little did I know the worst was still to come. But I was in denial and ill-prepared for the bombshell revelations that were about to rock me further in the weeks ahead. Despite my efforts in counseling and trying to be more present and attentive to Emma at home, her behavior just kept getting more erratic and suspicious over the next few months. She was constantly texting, taking phone calls in other rooms, and making excuses for frequent girls' nights out with Sarah and her other friends. Few times she stayed out until 2 or 3 a.m., leaving me to handle getting Lucy ready for preschool and out the door in the morning. When I'd confront Emma about where she'd been, she'd get defensive and accuse me of not trusting her. We'd end up fighting, and she'd storm off to bed angry. The tension and distance between us was taking a major toll. I loved Emma with everything in me, but her hot/cold pullback was shredding my heart into pieces. We could have a couples counseling session where she'd open up, seem recommitted to working on us, and I'd get my hopes up, only for another blowout fight to crush them a week later. One day, as I was leaving my office job, I saw Sarah lingering by my car looking distressed. She was another one of the nurses who had gone on that fateful cruise with Emma. We had gotten relatively close over the past year as I looked to her and her husband Mark as an example of a strong marriage to emulate. "John, can we talk for a minute?" Sarah said timidly when she saw me. She looked like she'd been crying. "Yeah, of course. What's going on?" I asked, immensely concerned. "Everything okay with you and Mark?" Sarah shook her head sadly. "No, it's not that. John, I have to tell you something. Something about Emma." My heart stopped as her words hung in the air. I felt dizzy, leaning back against my car for support as I braced for whatever bombshell was coming. On the cruise, Emma, Sarah wrung her hands anxiously as she searched for the words. "She hooked up with one of the staff members, just a drunken fling," I thought at first, but I've seen messages between them since. Texts, emails, little gifts being exchanged when she claimed to be with other friends. It was like the world spinning around me crashed to a halt. A ringing, high-pitched tone filled my ears as I struggled to process Sarah's words. Emma, my Emma, had been unfaithful. Are you sure about this?" I choked out, feeling like I might vomit. "There's no way. She wouldn't do that to me. To us." Sarah looked at me sadly, almost pityingly. She pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots of incriminating messages and emails. Things that clearly showed an emotional affair, at the very least. "John, I'm so sorry," she said, starting to cry again. "I didn't want to have to be the one to tell you this, but you're my friend, and you deserve to know the truth about what kind of person she really is." I don't remember much of what happened after that. It was like my brain went into shock, like a computer being hit with a fatal error and automatically shutting down all background programs. I'm pretty sure I just got in my car and drove home in a daze, pulling into the driveway on autopilot. Emma was in the kitchen making dinner when I walked in like a zombie. "Hey babe, you're home here." Her words were cut off when she saw the look on my face. Could see fear flash in her eyes as she registered that I knew something. "Emma," I said, amazed that any sound could come out of my bone-dry mouth at all. Did you have an affair?" "On the cruise?" For a second, she looked caught like a deer in headlights. Then just as quickly, her expression hardened into one of pure defiance. "John, I don't know what you think you know," she started icily. "But you're way out of line, accusing me of something like that. After everything I've sacrificed to be a good wife and mom. Then what is all this?" I shouted, holding up the phone with the screenshots that Sarah had sent me. "These messages, These little gifts you've been getting. What else am I supposed to think? Emma closed her eyes briefly, exhaling shackly. When they opened, I saw a look of resignation and shame, like she knew she'd been caught red-handed. Okay, you're right, she said quietly, not meeting my eyes. I made a mistake on that cruise. A huge, terrible mistake that I'll regret for the rest of my life. There was this guy, and we'd both been drinking, and even while living apart those first few months after Emma's confession, we both initially agreed that we needed to make a real effort in counseling to try to save our marriage. For Lucy's sake, if nothing else. I was devastated by Emma's betrayal, but I still loved her deeply. And I desperately wanted to believe her remorse was genuine and that we could rebuild the trust and intimacy. Our counselor urged me to be patient, that recovering from infidelity was a long road. He advised Emma that full honesty and transparency would be crucial for me to feel safe recommitting to the marriage. She nodded solemnly, promised to give me full access to her devices and accounts, and said she had ended all contact with her cruise fling. First, it seemed like she was making a solid effort to make amends. She was more attentive and affectionate when we were together. She'd fawn all over me after my visits with Lucy, telling me how much she missed us. I really think we're making progress, don't you? Emma said one night after a joint session. We were having dinner at our favorite Mexican place, one from happier times before the affair thawed. I guess, I said hesitantly, swirling my beer. I want to believe that, but I still get hit with so much anger and hurt out of nowhere sometimes. It's like I can't fully trust that you're over him. Emma reached across the table, putting her hand over mine. Baby, I am so sorry for what I did, for how I betrayed you and our vows. It was the biggest mistake of my life, but I swear to you, on my love for our daughter, that man means nothing to me. You're my world, John. I don't want to lose you. I searched her eyes for any flicker of dishonesty and saw none. Emma had always been an amazing actress in school plays, but her words seemed to be coming from a genuine place. Okay, I said with a small nod. Okay, I believe you. We gotta keep working at this thing. I can't live without you. We hugged and I felt a sliver of hope. Maybe she was finally coming back to me after all. But over the next few weeks and months, it became impossible to fully believe Emma's words and remorse. There were still shady times when she was incommunicado for hours, missed calls from unknown numbers, Venmo and Cash App charges to places she couldn't explain. My anxiety was constantly triggered, flaring with suspicion that she was somehow still talking to this loser from the cruise. I'd confront her and she'd get defensive, accusing me of trapping her in the house and overreacting. Our counselor tried to play mediator, but it was a vicious cycle with no clear resolution. One day, Emma claimed she had a work conference and asked if I could take Lucy for the weekend. 2 days later, I was reviewing our phone records and saw an extended call during the time she said she'd be at the conference. When I asked her about it, she got flustered, claimed it was one of her girlfriends, and abruptly ended the conversation. More little things like that kept chipping away at my trust. Looking back, I realized part of me knew she was most likely having an ongoing affair, keeping this other man as a backup plan. But my heart was in denial, terrified of admitting I'd lost my wife for good. We both agreed to keep trying for a while longer. But the writing was on the wall, as our conflicts reached a boiling point over Thanksgiving. We had decided to all spend it together as a family, giving Lucy one last happy holiday before whatever was coming next. During a blow-up fight while Emma was making the turkey, she finally admitted what I think we'd both known deep down for months. Her heart was no longer in our marriage. She still had feelings for her cruise fling, whoever he was, and wasn't willing to let that go. "Can't keep doing this to you, to us," she cried, burying her face in her hands. "You don't deserve to be stuck in this limbo, John. We both know where this is headed." My heart shattered into pieces hearing those words. Part of me had been clinging to the tiniest sliver of hope that we could find a way to make it work. But Emma had clearly checked out. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by this hollow shell of wandering eyes and deceit. "So that's it then," I choked out, unable to hold back my own sobs. "You're really going to just throw away 9 years of marriage, family, over some random fling that probably meant nothing to that guy?" Emma looked at me, her face a mask of misery and resignation. I'm so sorry, John. You have to know how much you and Lucy mean to me. I'll never stop loving you. But I have to follow my heart, even if it destroys me to hurt you this way." I don't think I've ever felt pain quite like in that moment. The anguish, the rage, the sense of reality as I knew it being violently ripped away. It was all-consuming. I wanted to hit something, to scream, to beg her to fight for our little family. Looking into Emma's eyes, though, saw it was over, done. My beautiful wife had been swallowed up by this affair demon, and there was nothing I could do to save her, not anymore. So with splintered soul, I started making plans to move out and file for divorce, to legally untangle our lives, to fight for as much custody as possible of my precious Lucy, and do everything I could to shield her from the trauma her mother and I were inflicting. Emma had made her choice. All I could do was pick up the shattered pieces of my shattered heart and struggle to somehow go on. After about 6 months of agonizing separations and false start attempts at repairing our marriage, I finally realized I had to rip off the Band-Aid for my own well-being. Emma's inability to fully cut ties with her cruise fling made it impossible for us to rebuild the trust so vitally broken. Part of me hadn't wanted to accept it, but the signs were all there. She was in way too deep with her affair feelings. More than once, she would manipulatively schedule some work obligation or kid pickup conflict during my custody time with Lucy, just so she could go meet up with her boyfriend. The lies and deception had become pathological. I finally sat Emma down and told her I wanted to move forward with an official divorce. I'll never forget the look of resigned surrender on her face, like part of her had been waiting for me to say the words out loud. "I understand," was all she said at first. Then she reached out and took my hand. "John, you know I'll always love you, right? You are my great love, my soulmate, but I have to follow my heart, no matter how broken it makes me to hurt you this way." Pulled my hand back reflexively, unable to bear her touch in that moment. "Just stop, Emma. Please, for once, just stop with the pretty words and poetic bullshit. You've made your choice loud and clear. Him over our family, our vows, our daughter. Can't keep living in this suspended limbo reality, torturing myself over whether you'll do the right thing. I'm done." She flinched slightly at my harsh tone, but nodded in resignation. We started the long, arduous process of filing paperwork, separating assets and accounts, and, most painfully, negotiating a custody schedule for Lucy. We agreed to pursue joint legal custody, but I'll be honest, played hardball to get as much physical custody as I possibly could. If Emma was going to insist on tearing apart our family, I'd be damned if she got to just keep Lucy to herself while carting around her new boy toy fling. In the end, through mediation, we reached a 60-40 split, with me getting Lucy about 60% of the time. It killed me to have to split time with my baby girl at all, but I had to accept it as the best I could get. At least I could rest easier knowing Lucy would mostly be with me in a stable, drama-free environment. My friendship, and yes, let's be honest, emotional connection with Sarah deepened tremendously during this time. Her marriage to Mark was going through its own very rough patch, with him constantly traveling for work and leaving her feeling abandoned much of the time too. We really leaned on each other for support, venting for hours over games of Monopoly with Lucy or beers on her patio after bedtime. We were always careful to keep strict boundaries in place. Sarah made it clear she would never be the other woman, which I respected immensely, and I sure as hell wasn't looking to repeat the same infidelity mistakes that blew up my own marriage. But the intimacy of our connection was unmistakable, the deepening bond built on going through parallel heartbreaks, but surviving and persevering for our daughters. A couple months after my official divorce from Emma was finalized, Sarah pulled me aside one day. "John, I don't want to overstep or make assumptions," she started hesitantly, "but these feelings I've developed for you over these months, they're more than just friends. And I have to be honest about that before it festers into an unhealthy secret." I felt my breath catch in my chest as she spoke the words I'd barely allowed myself to acknowledge consciously. Of course I'd felt it too, the sparks, the magic, the intangible yet overwhelming connection that went beyond just being platonic partners in suffering. "Sarah," I stammered, unable to find the right words. "You have to know, I feel it too. That cosmic pull, like we were always meant to be part of each other's lives in this deeper way. But I never would have acted on it. Not while you were still with Mark, because I do respect you and what you two had too much for that." She reached out and took my hand, giving it a soft squeeze. "I know that. That's why I'll always trust you, John. But Mark and I are over. Have been for a while, if I'm being truly honest with myself. The papers just haven't been signed yet." We stared at each other in weighted silence, both of us feeling that profound shift in energy. Like the universe was giving us a sign to start the next chapters of our lives, this time with each other by our sides. In the end, Sarah and I took it very slowly, for Lucy's sake more than anything. But she fully embraced the role of bonus mom, of parental partner in raising my daughter. And watching their bond grow to become as thick as any biological mother-daughter relationship, it healed parts of my heart I hadn't even realized were shattered. Emma did try one last-ditch effort to reconcile with me after finally, officially breaking up with her cruise fling. She begged for another chance, saying she'd made the biggest mistake of her life throwing away our marriage over a meaningless fling. Part of me did feel a flicker of hope, like maybe there was a path to rewriting our fairy tale, ending after all. But taking a long, honest look into my heart, I realized I was already gone. My lifeline had been severed, my heart had already chosen to move on and start fresh with Sarah and this new beginning she represented. As painful as it was to accept, that former version of myself was gone forever. So I politely, but resolutely, told Emma no. I appreciated her honesty and self-awareness, but I deserved to be someone's first choice, not a backup plan or safe fallback. More than anything, Lucy deserved a happy, secure future with parents who were fully invested and present for her. And I had finally found that with Sarah. In the 2 years since my divorce from Emma was finalized, it's amazing how the clouds of depression, anxiety, and low self-worth have gradually lifted and dissipated. Genuinely feel like the weight of the world has been pulled off my shoulders, allowing me to breathe freely again. My relationship with Sarah just works, you know. We have such an easy, natural rapport, and our values are lockstep aligned, whether it's approaches to parenting Lucy or just our visions for building a life together. She's incredibly caring, silly when she needs to be, but also refreshingly direct and no bullshit. An amazing partner. Sarah has also been incredible with Lucy from the very start. They just sort of clicked in a way that any biological parent dreams about when introducing a new partner into the family mix. To see them playing dress-up or doing makeovers, baking together in the kitchen, my heart swells with a sense of true contentment I never could have envisioned a few years ago. This past year, with Lucy getting a little older and their bond so secure, Sarah and I decided we wanted to try to have a child together as well. We figured having a new baby would be a beautiful way to initiate the next chapter for our blended family. I'll admit, the idea gives me jitters. I'll be a first-time dad again at 37. But Sarah has such a grounded, calming presence. I know we've got this. My relationship with Emma has been fine, I guess. Civil and respectful when we need to interact for Lucy's sake. But very surface level beyond that. She's dated some other guys here and there from what I know, but nothing too serious as far as I can tell. Part of me does still care for Emma in a weird way. She was a huge part of my life for so long. We share Lucy, all those good memories. But I've realized how vital it was to fully break that soul tie for my own well-being. At my lowest points during the separation and divorce, there were times I really didn't think I'd ever regain my sense of self-worth or be happy again. The pain, rage, feelings of emasculation and inadequacy. It was all-consuming. Like someone had pushed a nuclear Armageddon button, decimating the landscape of my life and former identity. But over the past couple years, I've realized how strong I can actually be. How resilient and capable of persevering through darkness to find the light. I don't think I've ever felt as self-assured as I do now about the life I want to build for myself and my growing family. I'm intentional in a way I hadn't been before. So many men find themselves in similar situations, blindsided by their wives' infidelity or skyrocketing unhappiness. At my lowest, most isolated points, I wish I'd had an example like myself now to look towards, to see that it is possible to not only survive your world shattering into pieces, but to eventually rebuild an even better, more fulfilling reality with someone who values and cherishes you fully. More than anything, I want other men in my former shoes to know it can get better. So much better. You just have to hold on, stay true to your values and vision for the kind of partner and father you aspire to be, and never stop believing that you deserve happiness. I found it with my little family now, Lucy, Sarah, and the new baby on the way. And the joy I feel celebrating and appreciating this second shot at life is something I'll never take for granted again. And if you enjoyed this story or my general vibe, tapping that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.